Queen's Orbit. My name is Abigail Weiss. Some may know me as former Division One athlete. Others may know me as a statistician. Some know me as an NIL name, image, likeness marketer. And some just know me as the girl who just wants to talk basketball all day. And I'm all the above. But what's below? For my pitch, I'll be presenting my podcast series called Below the Court. And initially, I created Below the Court with the agenda of being a platform for mental health advocacy. I wanted to create a space where athletes can come and just speak realism, speak their truth, speak about some of the below the surface level occurrences that happen within the sports world, share some untold stories to shed light on the situation, maybe some stories that they've been compartmentalizing for years, never got a chance to talk about, never felt comfortable talking about. I wanted to change that. I grew a passion for having more meaningful conversations with athletes, more so on topics that are true to their values, their DNA, them as people. Talking more tactically about basketball, about sports. I think that's important. Talking to athletes and having conversations of things that are really true to them. And after what I didn't know at the time was one of the most innovative and life-changing experiences within the California basketball circuit this summer, it motivated me to really execute some of my visions. There are a variety of topics that athletes come on the podcast and talk about. Let's take a look. I've had the pleasure of speaking with 7 high caliber athletes thus far. 6 were former Division I athletes, one's a current Division I athlete. So throughout these conversations, what I've noticed is that there's a lot of recurring themes and trends that these athletes are discussing. I want to display some of these recurring themes and trends. So in order to do so, I created a qualitative map of coding, meaning a qualitative statistical breakdown to show some of these correlating factors of topics and concepts.
We're able to break this data down into a pie chart to express percentages. As you can see, mental health constitutes as the greatest percentage of the content within these conversations. Now let's go into these topics a little bit more detail-oriented. The athletes that come on these conversations, they get into really great detail about mental health, not only about some of mental health values, but also in expressing some of their own stories. There's a lot of things that are brought up. In maps of coding, how we track some of the recurring themes is we divide them into codes. So the codes represent some of the statements and concepts that are repeating throughout the conversations. One of the major codes is codes 1, importance of mental health and wellness, followed by codes 2, mental health challenges in sports.
But the price of your mental health and your mental well-being, like, that's priceless.
That's right.
That's the base. You can't perform if you don't feel good.
That's right.
Your mind is stronger than any muscle in the body.
Wrenching for sure, and it's the mental battle as well, not just the physical battle. You got everything.
Mental test really tests your mental and how hungry you are and how bad you want it.
And like, I looked fine on the outside, but in the inside, like, I was not good. I was not good at all. And I want to say this to players now, like, if you feel like a situation is not right, change that now.
I commend the athletes for coming on and acknowledging suicide and depression rates.
Seeing these statistics and going back to depression and suicide rates, I think that's why we're seeing that spike. There's just a lack of support, but extremely high expectations.
You're unseen, unheard, uncared about. It's the quickest route to depression, honestly, with athletics.
Right.
And
I really commend and appreciate my athletes for shedding light to the mental health conflict. The next major recurring theme is marketing. How to brand yourself, how to be your own brand, and also the power of networking.
Networking piece is definitely key in everything that you do. Like, just making sure that you're taking advantage of every interaction, no matter how big or how small you think it may be.
So powerful.
You gotta market yourself as a product, but a product that's in high demand.
That's deep.
You will never be more marketable than you are when you're a college athlete. Like, that's when you're the most marketable. Like,
the next major theme is identity capital. I encourage athletes to come on here and just speak about some of their player DNA and their journeys, past, present, and future.
Basketball. From there, went to Portugal for a little bit. And now I am back just spreading positivity to the youth, trying to give back, trying to be the person that I wish I had to them.
The next coding, which is actually one of my favorites that's been brought up a lot, is the grind and style of play. I want to talk tactics. I want to talk who you are as a player. I want to talk about some of what makes your game you.
I gotta do this or I gotta do that. Nah, it's the fact that you have to come to perform and win. Like you have to perform at your top level every day, and on top of that, win.
I'm like, yo, let's get the heavy balls out. I'm gonna work on my entry passes all night. Let's get the heavy, all night. I'm literally just pass faking it, wrapping it around and wrapping it around and wrapping it around. We get ready for being overseas, and literally that first month, I think, like when we was doing preseason and stuff, I got like the MVP award while I was over there, and I was like, wow, like I still can hoop.
The next code is communication. Actually, every single one of them has said the importance of passing on knowledge.
Okay, I actually have the ability to help someone who's about to endeavor on this journey, kind of thing.
And that's what the older generation is supposed to do. Tell you what they did so you can do either the same things or the opposite.
When talking about changing the language with athletes, I think that's really important, especially when addressing the mental health conflict.
Just have to have better conversations and different conversations. We have to start changing the language around athletes.
The next theme is life after. This one I think is so important, especially for younger generation of athletes.
The same way that you're cutting corners now in basketball, whether it's, you're coming late to the gym, or you're not getting your treatment in, or you're not going to class, like habits that you have there are going to translate to real life.
And last but not least, coaching culture and athlete objectification.
Seeing them as people and not just commodities is a really big thing. So I think that whole movement has been really, really interesting to see a lot of stuff come out.
It's very damaging to a player to go through that when you worked so hard for something and this coach took their time out to bring you here, and you're almost just like a prop. You're like a cone to the program, a cone that you just throw out and pick up and put back in the closet at the end of the day. But when they need you and you show up, now all of a sudden you're important. Like, how do you respond to that?
Alleviating this conflict is not only shedding light on the negatives, but it's also shedding light on how we can keep fostering some positive relationships.
Not just as an athlete, but as an individual. And she kept that very clear over summer, that she was kind of here for me.
If more coaches form the community of how are my kids doing? How's like I think there's a big lack of that.
She's like holding you accountable and like maybe cursing you out. You know it's coming from a place of like good
love.
intent and love.
Yes,
because you
and
guys
she knows,
built that connection.
And she knows what I'm capable of.
Right.
So it's like if I know that you can see it in me, I'm like, okay, let me see if I can get myself there. I'm like,
you gotta be invested.
That's right.
Like, have to be invested.
So the data from Below the Court, it's really giving us some insights. I mean, athletes are coming on here and they're really bringing to the forefront some of the below the surface level occurrences that happen within the sports world. Things that aren't really talked about, things that need to be brought to light. Some of these topics, they have the ability to foster change within the collegiate sports world, within professional sports, and just within the overall mental health and wellness of athletes. These are data-driven solutions that can foster some of these changes. Well, that was pretty intense. I just felt like the player in me had to come out and just, talk about this pitch and just the meaning behind it. Sometimes it's cool being like a former player in a position of power, because now I get to do things for the first benefit of the athletes. I'm in this sports admin role where I work compliance and I work media, and my main role is to develop NIL for athletes NIL and ordinance to NCAA rules and regulations, as well as media promotion. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. One of the main concepts that kept repeating amongst the athletes on Below the Court was the concept of passing down knowledge, Codes 27. My first agenda was to make sure to try to pass down some of the knowledge in terms of NIL and creating and the importance of your name, image, likeness to the athletes. You will always have control over, regardless of who tries to control you, who tries to change your narrative, you will always be in control as an athlete of your NIL. One of the biggest standouts on Below the Court was when Jay Moore expressed how we need to change the language with athletes, Codes 27. So that was my main agenda, was to try to create conversations to change the language. And it became really successful. Marketing and media bought in, and we turned it into a show called Catching Up with Coppin. So I have visions for Below the Court, and I really think that this is going to foster change. I think it's going to change the narrative of athletes, help them develop their voice, their NIL, bring out a mental health evolution. We need that. I really want to help make the sports world a better place through these shared conversations and marketing. There's one more thing that I think is going to be crucial in making the sports world a better place. Earlier, I talked about California basketball and the summer of California basketball circuit being one of the most transformative experiences to witness in my life. Some of what they've cultivated within California basketball, they completely modernized the game. They made it player-led. It gave players some creativity and a sense of individuality. And I learned so much by just being around basketball innovators. I just got a lot of videos viral from some of the second-tier sports because I got myself a camera stick because I was trying to be like this guy. And I just kind of wanted to try to bring some swag to some of the third-tier sports by listening to this guy. I was able to be a commentator and try to emulate some of his commentaries to some events, second and third tier.
Got power hitter combined with tactical killer. Lethal.
It motivated me being over there to just have the courage just to talk to athletes. A lot of the players there were very approachable, and I was able to have some intellectual conversations about basketball. And right when I got on the plane back to the East Coast, I thought to myself, I need to bring some X versus X, some California basketball back to the East Coast and make that the DNA of how collegiate sports is ran. Because how they ran it over there in California, some of the visions that was created with X versus X, that is going to be key to bringing out an evolution and modernizing the game and making it more enjoyable for athletes. So with this newfound innovation fostered through California basketball, I really want to be able to execute some of those X versus X values within collegiate sports world here through Below the Court. As I said, that's key, but sometimes it's hard because I'm operating it off as a one-woman show. I'm literally just using my phone and my laptop, and there's complications with that. Sometimes I'll film full podcasts and audios and it just won't save. Sometimes there's audio interferences. Sometimes lights just turn off randomly. There's been a lot of times where I've had to decline athletes who want to talk on the podcast because I just don't trust my devices. Operating with the phone, sometimes like the cell phone will ring, there's a notification, and it's intrusive to some of the athletes because if you're in the middle of an interpersonal deep thought and then the phone rings and then it shuts down, there's a lot of complications that occur with this. So in talking about profitability, whether I want this to be nonprofit or profit, it is 100% clear to me. This needs to be nonprofit. I do not want this to be profit. I want this to be nonprofit. I want to make sure that athletes know that my intentions for Below the Court, it's not to try to profit off of them, their stories, their truths. We have enough people within the sports world, particularly the basketball world, who have motives of just money, ulterior motives of money and finances, and that's not what I want to do. A lot of these conversations are very interpersonal because they look at me player to player, and they know that when I'm talking to them, my agendas are raw when it comes to them and just wanting to help them. If I were to make this profit, now it just changes the authenticity of these conversations, and that's not what I want to have happen, because these conversations are crucial and they're giving us really important information in order to evolve the sports world, and that's what I want. I want to see change. So I'm operating off as a one-woman show. And I may be one woman, But if I have the power and the position to change the sports world and make it a better place, I'm ready to take on the mental health conflict within sports through Below the Court.